There is a specific kind of person you keep finding yourself in love with. Different names, different faces, different stories, but always the same person underneath. But look at the people you have loved, dated, worked for, chosen as friends. There is a thread connecting them, one you can only see in retrospect, and only if you are brave enough to really look. They were not all the same on the surface, but underneath, they all made you feel the same way, needed the same thing from you, asked you to become the same version of yourself. And every time you told yourself, this one is different. You were right, they were different, you were the one who was not. In the next few minutes, you will see the 5 phases that keep this pattern alive, 5 movements that explain why you keep choosing the same wound in different bodies, and why recognizing this is the only thing that ever actually ends it. The 5th phase is the one nobody tells you about because it does not come from a self-help book. It comes from sitting with yourself in a way you have probably never done. Think of the last time a relationship ended badly, a friendship, a job, a romantic partner, the person who disappointed you, drained you, or quietly unmade your life. Now think of the one before that and the one before that. If you look honestly at the last 3 or 4 people who hurt you, you will notice something. They were not the same on paper, different faces, different jobs, different stories, but they moved in your life the same way. They all needed something specific from you, the same flavor of attention, the same kind of rescuing, the same shape of self-erasure. And you always gave it, not once or twice, but every time, because giving it was the only way you ever knew how to be loved. This is the pattern, the invisible thread that ties every significant relationship in your life together. The names change, but the patterns do not. You might call it bad luck, you might call it a type, you might even call it a curse. But the truth is simpler and much harder to accept. You were not unlucky, you were being chosen back, chosen by your own unconscious, again and again, because something in you recognized them before your conscious mind ever did. So where does this pattern come from, and why does it feel like it has always been there, running your life before you ever had words for it? Imagine being very young, small enough that you did not yet have words for what was happening to you. Someone in your world was unpredictable, or cold, or absent, or loving in ways that came with conditions. You did not think about it in those words, you just adapted. You learned to read their face before you ever read books. You learned which version of yourself was safe to show and which version caused them to withdraw. And you did it because you had to, because at the age you learned this, you could not leave. That learning is still inside you. It did not disappear when you grew up. This is the echo, and every time you meet someone whose emotional texture matches that first person, your entire nervous system lights up in a way that feels like recognition. You call that recognition chemistry, you call it love at first sight, you call it, I have always been drawn to this kind of person. What is really happening is that your body is recognizing home in the form it was first shaped by. It does not matter if home was painful. The pattern does not care about good and bad, it cares about familiar. Familiarity, to a nervous system built on survival, is safety, even when the familiar thing is the exact thing that hurt you. Think of the first time you ever met someone and knew, in the first minute, that your life had just changed. When you meet someone who matches your pattern, something happens in your body that feels unmistakable. A warmth, a pull, a certainty that this person understands you in a way nobody has before. You read it as compatibility, as destiny, as the thing you have been waiting for. What is actually happening inside your body is much stranger than connection, and much older. Your nervous system, trained by years of responding to the original person, has just found another version of that emotional climate, and it is celebrating, because celebration is how the body responds to familiarity, even dangerous familiarity. This is the chemistry, and it is the cruelest part of the whole thing. Because the stronger the pull, the more it confirms the pattern is active. The intensity is not a signal of fit, it is a signal of repetition. The people who feel like coming home, who feel like, "I cannot believe I found you," who light you up inside the first conversation, these are the exact people your pattern was waiting for. And the people who feel calm, uncomplicated, quietly good for you, they feel boring, they feel flat. You cannot understand why you are not excited about them. Because your nervous system does not get excited about safety, it gets excited about repetition. The sign you are caught in this: every time you meet someone who lights you up, you later realize they hurt you in the exact same way as the one before them. And every time you meet someone good, your mind finds a reason to dismiss them, a reason that sounds like taste, but is actually a trap. Now comes the part most people get wrong, the exact move that keeps the pattern alive, even when you are actively trying to stop it. After the third or fourth or fifth time the pattern plays out, after enough pain to make you stop, you make a conscious decision. You will never date that kind of person again. You make a list: no more narcissists, no more emotionally unavailable people, no more people who remind you of your father, your mother, or your first heartbreak. So you choose differently, on purpose, someone who looks like the opposite. And for a while it works. The relationship is calm, the person is attentive, you breathe a little easier. But slowly, so slowly you do not notice it, the same feeling returns, the same exhaustion, the same walking on eggshells, the same sense of becoming smaller. Because the new person, despite everything different on the surface, is running the same emotional program underneath. This is the fake exit, and it is the reason therapy sometimes does not work, why relationship books fail, why people swear off a type only to find themselves in it again, wearing a different face. You did not change the pattern, you just gave it new costumes to wear. Because the pattern was never about the other person's traits, it was about your internal template for what connection feels like. And until that template changes, every person you are drawn to will match it, no matter what their resume looks like. So what does the real exit look like, the one that actually breaks the pattern? It is not choosing a different type. It is not making a list of red flags. It is not dating someone boring and forcing yourself to like them. The real exit is smaller, quieter, and much harder than any of those. It begins the first time you notice, in the middle of the chemistry, in the middle of the pull, in the middle of finally, someone, that a specific old feeling has just turned on inside you. The feeling of needing to please them, the feeling of becoming smaller to keep them, the feeling of having to read their face to know if you are safe. And instead of obeying that feeling, instead of leaning toward them the way you always do, you pause. You say to yourself, quietly, this feeling is old, this feeling is from before, this feeling is not about this person at all. And then this is the part nobody teaches you: stay. You do not act on the pull, you do not pursue, you do not shrink, you do not run. You just sit with yourself in the middle of the familiar storm, and you feel what you felt as a child when you first learned to read faces for safety. This is the real exit, the only one that has ever worked. Not choosing better people, choosing yourself at the exact moment the old pattern tries to hand you away again. Every time you do this, the template cracks a little, not dramatically, just one small hairline at a time. Here is the hidden truth that ties this whole pattern together. You are not drawn to the wrong people. You are drawn to the familiar people, and your childhood decided what familiar meant for you long before you had a say in it. This is not your fault, but it is your inheritance, and inheritances only stop being inherited the day someone refuses to pass them on. Every wound that gets repeated was shaped by someone who did not have the tools to stop it. You are now the first person in your line who might. Not by picking differently, but by unlearning what it is that pulls you. Look at the last 3 people who hurt you and ask yourself one question, quietly, honestly. Not what was wrong with them, not why you picked them, but who in your earliest life did they remind you of? The answer will not come quickly. It will come in pieces, over days, maybe weeks, as your mind assembles what it has been avoiding. But when it arrives, it will feel more like remembering than thinking. And that remembering, that is the beginning of the end of the pattern. The next person you choose, after that remembering, might be the first person you actually chose. Not the one chosen for you decades ago by a child who had no other option.